song and I like it, I can always give you a hint.
Nevermore. Well, not late. The Oracle was hopping mad because his crystal ball had broken into halves when it was damaged in a fall. He mended it as best he could with scotch tape, string, and glue, but it wasn't working perfectly and some things weren't coming through. For example, when he saw a man hit by a car downtown, he found that he just couldn't get the license number down. And yesterday it showed a man who was falling from a tree. Oh, I wish he'd fix that crystal ball, because that falling man was me.
Why do they keep hitting the gorilla? He's a nice guy.
A lovely girl dropped by to see the Oracle last week and said, "Please read my future," in a blushing voice quite meek. "I'm now engaged. See here the ring," that lovely lady said. And so I thought I'd come by here and have my left palm read. The Oracle looked at her hand and said, "Oh dear, oh my, I see a strange thing here, dear girl, but please don't start to cry. I predict that in an hour you'll have an awful fright and find this ring won't leave your hand because it fits too tight." The Oracle says when he makes predictions, they come true, and if they're awful forecasts, well, there's nothing he can do. But sometimes he predicts his subject's going to get a letter, or that his health will fail and then suddenly get better. He says I look in some folks' hands and see almost next to nothing. And when their future is that banal, I have to make up something. I know it's pretty trivial information that I'm giving, but after all, an oracle has got to make a living. The professor had a friend who spent his whole life counting stars. He kept his secret totals in a set of coffee jars. For every star, he'd put a bean in one of these containers and label it and put it on a shelf of jar retainers. One day, his wife got thirsty and decided on a cup of coffee, so she got a jar and ground the contents up. Her husband screamed, "It's happened, yes, the thing I fear the worst. You've gone and drunk up, darling, half of all the universe."
Kids love.
When some noise disturbs his reading, the librarian gets upset, and there's nothing more disturbing than an overpassing jet. So imagine how he felt when every day at 12 o'clock a plane went by so very low it caused the room to rock. He tried earplugs and cotton closing doors and windows too, but noise remained, and it appeared there was nothing he could do. The airplanes changed their route since then to another part of town because the old librarian said, "I'm going to shoot one down." He doesn't know his plans backfired, but he'll discover soon that all his books were once flown in on that plane that passed each noon. The Oracle once made me a most absurd prediction, but I got mad and left because I thought it was a fiction. He said you will be coming back to listen to me more. I told him that I doubted it, and then I slammed the door. Then fate said I would get a bill for something I had shattered. I said I didn't break anything, well, anything that mattered, but he was right. I should have known, for when I slammed the door, his crystal ball had broken, and it smashed across the floor. The Oracle is very good at telling what will come. But when he's asked about the past, he's really very dumb. The problem as I see it, he's really quite forgetful. He's always losing little things, and then he gets quite fretful. One day, he lost his magic ring, a thing that's very small, so I suggested that he should consult his crystal ball. He polished it until it shone, pronounced the magic word, and when the ball had answered him, he really felt absurd. As it turned out, the oracle had been especially dumb, for all the time his magic ring had been upon his thumb. Yeah, hippie. Librarians are patient folk. They don't mind taking ages to read a book, although there's 600,000 pages. I know of one who sat and read the Oxford Dictionary. The thought of reading all those words is really pretty scary. I asked him, was it hard to read? He said, yes, quite exceeding, because it weighs 10 pounds, you see. It's pretty heavy reading. Some oracles are wise, it's true. Instead of thinking problems through, they look into a crystal ball, which I think takes a lot of gall. You never know what they can see until you paid a costly fee. But here's one of a different class. He'll answer anything you ask. The best part is he works for free, because you see him on TV. I went to the librarian, and this is what I said. Can you suggest a book to me that I could take to bed? He said, you'll have to tell me, please. What did you have in mind? I've mysteries and horror tales and all of them. Quite fine. I answered, well, it has to be quite long and rather flat. I want to stuff it underneath to make the mattress flat. Shall we go see him? The oracle was telling me that he searched near and far to find that special place where you can see the wishing star. I found it yesterday, he said. It wasn't really hard. And would you guess that magic spot was in my own backyard? I looked up at that wishing star. The light was cold and lunar, but blue the whole thing when I said I wish I'd found it sooner. The professor tried to figure out how mummies were preserved. They've been around 2,000 years, much longer than they deserve. He worked on all the theories and composed existing facts that they might have all been dipped in vats of boiling candle wax. He said there's only one thing that's preserved them, so I'll bet. The one thing they've in common is not smoking cigarettes. The old librarian about a certain book, because somehow it appealed to me. I said I liked its look. He gave it to me and he said, I'm glad you thought to ask. I found that it was hollow and contained a little flask. He didn't let me open it, so here I'm only guessing, but I suspect that that's the book he finds the most refreshing. The old librarian showed me around his musty room, with cobwebs, mold, and not much light. It seemed quite full of gloom. He showed me books that were so old that he could never say when last they had been taken out into the light of day. I'll not forget the oldest one. The pages were all white. It had been made before mankind had learned to print or write. I asked him why he kept them still and hadn't thrown out one. He said, I leave them here because they make me feel so young. The oracle had all over on the floor, and I thought there was a prophecy for which we were in store. I thought the secrets of the cards were unraveling before me, and soon the mystic oracle would have predictions for me. I asked him to confide in me, in mysteries hidden there. He said, there is no mystery, sir. I'm playing solitaire. I asked the old librarian what made him lock his door, and tell the people there would be no books for them, no more. He said, I used to loan my books, but it just brought me grief. I seldom ever got them back, cause everyone's a thief. I think that he exaggerates, because if he had been wiser, he'd realize that he himself is nothing but a miser.
I wish the Oracle could see Bruce's future.
The Oracle went out to see his first Shakespearean play. He purchased tickets for the special Wednesday matinee. He had a friend, an actor, who was carrying a spear in his production of the Bard's smash hit called Old King Lear. The Oracle went right backstage where most folks never go, and so his friend was happy that he'd come to see the show. But oracles just should not say things like go and break a leg, because in the first act his friend did, and King Lear laid an egg. Librarians are stubborn men, or so I've heard them say, but I did not believe it till it all came clear one day. I saw the old librarian make quite a ghastly face, for in the middle of his book he somehow lost his place. He said, I'm now at chapter 6, or is it chapter 10? I don't know which, so what I'll do is start it all again. I said, why don't you check and see? To look would be no crime. He said, I couldn't do that because I haven't got the time. The oracle said that he can read the future in the stars, the dates of floods, and little men arriving here from Mars. He claims that all this is written there, just waiting to be read. The secret is to read the stars while standing on your head. But I don't know. I have my doubts. He really has the knack. With talents like that, he would be out at the racing track. The oracle says that he can spot a witch at 50 paces. He finds it simple, saying that it's written on their faces. We asked him how he did this, and he smiled a secret smile, and said by mystic powers first developed on the Nile. We tested him and took him out into the crowded room. He said, a witch is over there, that one who's got the broom. I know of a librarian who thinks he's up to date, although he hasn't left his room since 1898. He says he hasn't missed a thing because he reads the news. I told him you should go outside. You've not a thing to lose. He disagreed with me and said he wouldn't go because he liked to sit and think about not what is, but what was. The oracle once told us how in ancient days gone by, everybody dreaded to see comets in the sky. Comets were a sign of doom, feared by every man. And then he told us how this superstition all began. An ancient king was first to say that comets, sure, were malice. When one came flying from the sky and smashed into his palace. Librarians are stay-at-homes. They really seldom need the company of other folk. They'd much prefer to read. I know of one who never left his room for 60 years. He went out for a walk one day and came back full of fears. He said, I read of motor cars and thought I'd take a look. But now I think I'll stay at home and study them in books. Well, I could take this to the librarian. The oracle was telling me about the palms he's read and what he's learned from looking at the bumps on people's heads. I said that's quite amazing and quite clever and quite neat. But can you tell the future when you look at people's feet? Certainly, he said to me and flashed a stunning smile. Take off your shoes and sit you down. This may take quite a while. I see by this you suffer corns and take a size 10 shoe, and that you should try changing socks more often than you do. I read from this there's something bad in store for you here, mister. And I predict that by next week you're going to have a blister. I know our old librarian is never too polite, but he was boiling mad because I woke him in the night. I said I'd come up for a book to help me get to sleep. Light fiction would be just the thing, but nothing very deep. He looked at me quite angrily. I'm just the thing, he said. He seized the book and brought it crashing down upon my head. Librarian if he had had a bump, for there I saw upon his head a painful-looking lump. He said that he'd been looking for a book to read in bed, and when it struck him what to read, it struck him on the head. He said he climbed along the shelves, and just as he was turning, a book fell from the shelf above, a piece of higher learning. The oracle was asked one day to give us his prediction of when the world would end and tell us how, by what affliction. The oracle was quite surprised, but started calculations measuring the planets and their orbit correlations. He finished, put his pen down, and then turned and looked at me. The world will end, he slowly said, in 1953. How all poets waste time fussing over rhyming words exactly if they can. Is it really worth the fretting, spending weeks before they're getting the precise word rhyming with, say, Gengis Khan? We asked him for a sample. Could he give us an example? And he said he had the perfect story for us. How one fellow lost his mind all because he couldn't find the proper word that rhymed with the brontosaurus. I asked the old librarian what good there is in books. Each time I say a thing like that, he gives me funny looks. He said, my boy, a book is like a box of hidden treasure. The things I find inside them are the things that give me pleasure. Why, just the other day I found a thing I think's quite fine. An old $100 bill on page 689. Librarians are funny sorts. They're never up to date. If something big is taking place, they find out much too late. I told the old librarian that I would bring him soon a book that told the story of the first man on the moon. He laughed at me and then he said he'd give the book a try, but only when he knew for sure that man had learned to fly. Whenever you feel that you need the wisdom of the ages, just give the oracle a buzz. He's in the yellow pages. I phoned the operator up. She said his name was missing. I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have a nothing beneath that listing. And when I asked him, he replied, I thought it very wise to list it under plumbers, 'cause that way I'm in disguise. Nothing like a good comedy. Once upon a midnight dream. When visiting the library, one thing you mustn't do is ask for a specific book and take it home with you. The librarian has told me he wouldn't mind the least if anyone who takes his books is nabbed by the police. He also told me something else, but I don't think it's true. He says he thinks the magistrate would throw the book at you. Oh, the oracle is very good at reading people's palms. He'll tackle anybody's hand and not feel any qualms. The only one he cannot read belongs to Pet Bet's bear, because a bear's hand, as you know, is covered up with hair. Now, some librarians you'll find pretend to be quite gruff, but I know most of them inside are really nice enough. It's mostly their appearance, because they have forbidding faces. But once you get to know them well, they're filled with social graces. The one who looks into their face is one who likely finds that there is good inside if you'll just read between the lines. Oh, I asked the old professor, please just what are the attractions of laboring in a lab all day on chemical reactions? He said I'd never understand the scientific mind.
Well, you get the whole fucking
motto
tale.
was you'll never know until you seek and find. He said, oh, I asked the old professor, please just what are the attractions of laboring in a lab all day on chemical reactions? He said I'd never understand the scientific mind. His motto was you'll never know until you seek and find. He said the best part of it all was that he had no notions of what to do, so never knew if there would be explosion.
Margaret Trudeau, eat your heart out.
Don't me tell you about the one. Yeah, you got it.
The professor had a friend who spent his whole life counting stars. He kept his secret totals in a set of coffee jars. For every star, he'd put a bean in one of these containers and label it and put it on a shelf of jar retainers. One day, his wife got thirsty and decided on a cup of coffee, so she got a jar and ground the contents up. Her husband screamed, "It's happened, yes, the thing I fear the worst. You've gone and drunk up, darling, half of all the universe." When some noise disturbs his reading, the librarian gets upset, and there's nothing more disturbing than an overpassing jet. So imagine how he felt when every day at 12 o'clock a plane went by so very low it caused the room to rock. He tried earplugs and cotton, closing doors and windows too, but noise remained, and it appeared there was nothing he could do. The airplanes changed their route since then to another part of town, because the old librarian said, "I'm gonna shoot one down." He doesn't know his plans backfired, but he'll discover soon that all his books were once flown in on that plane that passed each noon. The oracle was hopping mad because his crystal ball had broken into halves when it was damaged in a fall. He mended it as best he could with scotch tape, string, and glue, but it wasn't working perfectly and some things weren't coming through. For example, when he saw a man hit by a car downtown, he found that he just couldn't get the license number down. And yesterday it showed a man who was falling from a tree. Oh, I wish he'd fix that crystal ball, 'cause that falling man was me. I asked the old librarian why, when he talked to me, he used such strange old-fashioned words like thou and thy and thee. He said that may sound strange to you, but I don't mind the least. I've spoken ever since like this they took away my teeth. But once more, I'm going to send you back to the source. I asked the old librarian what did he learn from life. He said the first thing was the rule to never take a wife. While they make superb companions and reliable good cooks, women haven't got the knack, he said, of understanding books. But somehow, son, I've often thought of marrying some wench, but when I do, the girl I choose will think and speak in French. I said, oh, that is really the most charming thing I've heard. The librarian said, I don't know why, because I don't speak a word. Mais jamais. Where is he? The old librarian, why was it when he read the books he seemed to like the most were all about the dead? I told him that it seemed to me to be extremely ghoulish. He laughed and said that I was very young and very foolish. He said he reads them all because the books are really giving new life to all those people, because it seems that they're still living.